In today's webinar, John Robba of Scavuzzo's will talk with AFS's Jordan Bullington. They'll talk about how Scavuzzo's address the challenges of increased accuracy and efficiency in their warehouses. John will talk about how they train new employees and get them up to speed fast. As transparency becomes an integral part of the global food supply chain, companies are being required to maintain detailed and up-to-date reports on their warehouse inventory. Warehouses need to be able to report on where their products came in from, when products arrived. They need to know where products are after they leave the warehouse. Their staff need to be trained to manage these requirements. Today's warehouse has to be able to turn product efficiently and accurately, accounting for all its inventory to keep date-sensitive product from sitting too long on the dock and missing its place in the rotation. For perishables, this is of the utmost importance.
So John, can you talk a little bit about how long it would take to receive, let's say, a 25-line purchase order before you were using a WMS, and then maybe talk a little bit about how long it took after you implemented a WMS?
Sure. So we're a heavy protein house, so we have lot control issues. We have catch weight, we have standard weight, and one of the biggest concerns that we had from the doc standpoint was adding all the catch weights up for items that didn't come across on the manifest, and getting the accurate lots recorded and making sure that we tracked each individual lot into the slot or to an overstock location. So manually capturing all of that data on pieces of paper and making sure that paper got to accounting or got to the warehouse management staff or getting to where they had to get, where they had to go, was extremely time consuming. We would probably, on a 25-line order with one of our major beef suppliers, we would be close to an hour, making sure we had the right product, making sure the dates were within tolerance, making sure the lot codes were something we could accept, and etc. After the WMS's implementation, being able to scan the G10 directly into the system and not only capturing code dates, lot numbers, and manufacturers right there on the spot from one scan. I mean, as fast as we can pull the pallets off of the truck, we can digest them and put them into our system. So, I mean, 100%, it really reduced the amount of time and the amount of paperwork and the amount of hands that had to touch a receiving order to get it in.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of touched on this a little bit just a second ago, but can you go into a little detail as far as what type of information you currently track on the inbound orders and on the inbound order lines when using a WMS?
Sure. So the first question that we have on the WMS is the temperature of the trailer that we're receiving the product from. So we have a record of that. Now that's either done by, most carriers nowadays have onboard temperature control or temperature reporting modules. We do have an infrared gun that we also use to collect that data. So temperature control, we also collect the lot number that's associated with the product. We control the manufacturer, code date, reception date, depending upon, different mixes of products have different requirements. Like dairy may have an expiration date, whereas beef has a rotation or a reception date, for expiration. I think the interesting thing that we see now with the introduction of G10 is being able to eliminate not only user error, but manufacturer's error, where they're sending maybe one or two of the wrong products in a load, and so scanning those into the system, we're able to find those at time of reception and reject or make the purchasing department aware of that, instead of waiting till we either incur a mispick or a misrotation on a wrong product.
Yeah, great examples. Can you talk a little bit to what were some of the major issues that you used to see when you'd receive on paper?
Yeah, first calculation, first off, was it 25 cases, 26 cases, 22 cases? I'd get a discrepancy from our accounts payable department that says, okay, their billing is 24 cases, your receiving manager said 22 cases, which one is it? There was really no justifiable way to go back and say, oh, it was for sure 24 or 22 short pay them or overpay them based on what we actually received. Whereas in the WMS system, for instance, we can go back, and since those products were assigned the license plates, even if they're out of our facility, we are able to run an audit on that license plate and see that it was tracked all the way to the overstock location, into the pick, who touched it, you know, when they touched it, how many they touched, and you know, you can get those answers to those questions from a reconciliation standpoint.
Yeah, and of those issues that you know, you used to see while receiving on paper, how did a WMS help resolve those?
Well, from the reconciliation, it does the math for you. So it basically, once you scan the products and enter the quantities, it'll compare that to the RO or the PO, and you know, well, make you verify that you know you did short. So for instance, if you accidentally typed in a number that wasn't correct, it prompts you to go back and double check and verify that you know what you said was right is correct. Like I said, the wrong products in the protein world, there's a lot of very similar products with terrible descriptions. Anybody in the protein is probably laughing right now because the descriptions are just draconian at this point. But the manufacturer numbers are always going to be a nice, unique way to identify, you know, most products. So being able to verify that what we said was on the RO is what we're actually receiving is huge in our industry. That and the catch weights, you know, making sure that the total gross weight ties out, and you know, we've caught some suppliers and shippers, you know, adding in pallet weights and not using, you know, proper business etiquette when it comes to, you know, selling per pound items. And I mean, it's this whole ball of things just run so much more smooth, and there's so much data that's collected. Being able to reconcile and go back under any circumstance and tell where, you know, your products have been, or how many, or whatever answer you're trying to, you know, question you're trying to answer.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. And so this topic that we're going to go over is talking about you know, keeping accurate inventory levels within your four walls. And you know, John, can you talk a little bit about you know, what were some of the biggest pain points that you had before you had a WMS and in regards to managing your inventory?
Well, I think there was really for us two major pain points, and like most people in the industry, when you get down to less than 5 cases in a slot, you know, your sales force is either going to completely rely upon that and trust that that slot, that order is going to be fulfilled, or they're going to say, you know, anything under 5 cases, I'm not even going to make that sale. So we've absolutely seen an increase in sales when it comes to items that we have short amount of quantity on hand. And I think the other part of that is the traceability of the product. So when there is an inventory issue, let's say those 5 did not exist, there's audit reports, there's lot controls, there's all these tools that we have access to now with WMS that allow us to go back and trace back why exactly do those 5 cases not exist. Who was the last person to touch them? Was it a mispick? Was it a misrotation? Were they damaged? You know, you can really start to answer those hard questions that I think everyone in the industry has, especially when it comes to, you know, low on-hand quantities. As far as our inventory control process goes, our inventory control manager with WMS now has an aggressive cycle counting scale. So he has a tool now that he can monitor how he's doing. You know, currently for us, we count in our entire facility every quarter. That's our goal, is to have every aisle and every spot counted every quarter in a rotation basis. Just for instance, we had our bank come down at the beginning of the year for an audit, since we're not doing physical inventories any longer, and we had less than $5,000 variance on about $4 million of inventory. So when you're talking about tightening up the noose and the day-to-day operations of what happens and the loss of product, I mean, 5,000 on 4 million is a pretty significant accurate inventory.
Yeah, you know, I'd like to touch a little bit on, you know, something you said there of how you went away with complete wall-to-wall physical inventories, and I think living in a paper world, that's very common to do wall-to-wall inventories on a monthly, quarterly basis. But you know, using a WMS allows you to do, you know, count the problem slots, the problem products, and it points out where the problems lie in the warehouse, so you don't have to count the slots in the product that aren't giving you grief or aren't giving you discrepancies. You just, basically you don't have to spend all the man hours every month counting every single slot. It's just on an as-needed basis, or in an incremental way.
Absolutely. So it's managing by exception, not the rule, right? That's what we're all trying to get to. Let's deal with the problem issues, and let's trace back and figure out why exactly these problems, or operator. I mean, we've actually established in a few cases an operator was not trained properly and wasn't doing the replenishments, and without that audit, that traceability to go back to understand who's moving what, there's really no other way to come to that conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and after implementing WMS, can you talk about how this made the buyers, the salesmen, and the warehouse employees' jobs easier and more effective?
Well, the buyers for sure. So right now, our inventory reception, our RO job runs every 10 minutes. So from our purchasing department, and we actually have 3 facilities that we have that we utilize reception at, and our buying department is centralized. So no matter what facility actually receives the RO, within 10 minutes, they have an accurate, short or over, or what actually happens to that RO. So as you're managing lines, and I'm not purchasing, so I can't really speak to their job title as much, but I do know there's a significant amount of efficiency that have been gained, and trust in the fact that the items were scanned into our system, were put away by this person, and for certain, we were shorted or overed or whatever the case may be. So that allows the purchasing department to be more almost proactive in the fact that they can call the manufacturer while the product is on the dock or right after the reception, and facilitate the back order fill or the sending back of product. When they send us the wrong or there's damages, we can handle that while the LTL or the shipper is still at the dock. We can make sure that we can get it back to them, or whatever whatever the solution is going to be. We handle that real time instead of reactively a few days later, or so on and so forth. Like I think a lot of people, including ourselves, we were in that boat.
Yeah, great examples. Let's talk about how does a WMS better equip your team with handling rotation and close to code items?
So we look at it in kind of waves. So we implemented the core functionality of WMS, which is replenishment, reception, so on and so forth. We're now, in the last few weeks, have gotten really heavy into misrotation. So where we're picking license plates that are younger than we have. We have older product existing in the warehouse. So we're running that report to verify that that we're not skipping over license plates or lots. And then the short-coded, there's a report in WMS that comes out, and you specify the shelf life in which you'd like to see your products. So basically, I want to see something in all products in my warehouse that are going to expire in the next 14 days. So our inventory control and quality assurance department gets that list together and sends it out to sales and purchasing and marketing, and we're able to be more effective. Do we need to give this product away at cost, or can we donate it, or is this a recurring issue? Is this the same manufacturer sending us close dated items? All those questions can be answered by just a few reports dumped into Excel with some basic analytics thrown against them. Right now we're having a really big push. We're in the process of installing OMS, the order management system, and our goal going forward is to put all of our short-coded items on a push order guide and sending it out to the sales force so that it sorts to the beginning of all of their screens. So every time they sit down with a customer and they open their laptop, the first items that are going to pop up are the items that we're trying to push out of our warehouse. Without the OMS and the WMS combination, there really would be no way to assume that.
And this will be our last topic for today, but we'll talk a little bit about slot optimization and the pick path improvements and how WMS played a role in that for Scavuzzo's. And John, let's talk about how the WMS helps with your slot optimization and reducing the labor within your 4 walls.
So I think there's 2 major key points that we've seen, and what I like about this topic is it's not a traditional WMS topic, right? It's something that you can do with the data that's collected via the system. So slot optimization is allowing us to run replenishment efficiency reports. So on a weekly basis, we print out the audit by job RP, or replenish job, and we look at slots that are violating, what we would consider more than 1 or 2 visits per week. So, for instance, we had a slot location that we were visiting 66 times average on a weekly basis. We were able to make 4 pick slots, or a super slot, 2 full bays, and we reduced that to less than 20 replenishments per week. So now we're visiting that, a third of the time, and that replenisher, that stocker, now is doing other jobs and is more efficient at what he's doing, and he's touching the items that we really need to touch, and not the items that we sell a lot of. I think a lot of people struggle with the top end and the back end. So the top end is what items need to be super slotted and what items need to be consolidated into maybe a hand stack. It's really easy to run a report, sort it into Excel, and say, okay, these 25 items need to be hand slotted, and then these 25 items need to be taken into a super slot. And then we can capture those line items, and then over the course of time we can see if what we're doing is helping the efficiency. So are we really going back 20 times? Is there a reduction in overtime? Is there a reduction in hand stock slots? Because if you're only selling 1 a month, or 1 every 2 months, 1 a quarter, there's really no need. If you put 5 or 6 in there, you're good for the entire year. So being able to track that to see if that actually occurring is big time for us. The other key point here is pick path optimization. So we are a food service company, and the customer dictates the product mix. So as everyone else knows, as different manufacturers come in, or as deals come in, as rebate programs, whatever the case may be, the product mix will change. So what we've done with WMS in conjunction with our ERP is we're applying sales data against slot max sizes, and we're optimizing our pick path based on the products that we're actually moving. I actually have a pretty good case study. We brought on a pretty significant amount of business over the summer, and their product mix didn't really mix well into our current. And so with a couple of months of data, we sat back, and it was taking us almost an hour to pull one of their dry pallets. And I mean, it's a 65 cube food service dry pallet. I mean, it's as tall as you can get it, and it's a huge, it's a pretty significant amount of business that we picked up. So we were able to move some slots forward and back, and kind of looking at the way the volume and the stackability, so stack factor of the product, the velocity of the product, and the cube of the product gave us the 3 criteria that we needed to optimize our dry picking path. And those pick times are down to around 40 minutes or less for the same order, same picker, same selector. Everything is basically the same, other than the product in a different location. He's not making it all the way down the 3rd or 4th aisle any longer. He's basically done with his pallets by the time he's rounding the 2nd or 3rd aisle end cap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great to hear.